Barghani, Islam, Salam, Peace, Rahubat, Gino Lago Ninani, Chief Noble Bandele, El-Amin, once again for another video. And today's video, we'll discuss misgivings. I call it misgivings, but it's really, we're going to discuss Thanksgiving, the history of it, and the relationship it has to melanated people and Moors. Okay, that's the general basis of it. We're also going to look at the treaty too, so we're going to get into all of that. So before we get all of that, please like this video, subscribe, and follow so you can check out more videos. Also, I got my info up here. Check out my math. I got my phone number just in case you need it for whatever services. We do various legal services. You can catch that also at I'll put that up there too. I'm gonna put our website, indigenous services.webs.com. Okay, now let me see. I'm gonna pull it up. So we got cash. You can also cash at me at Bandele227 Gmail, Bandele227 at Gmail, and like I said, indigenousservices.webs.com. Okay, so you got that. Also, a lot of what we'll discuss goes related to my books as well. So if you are interested in trying to pull it up, if you're interested in the books as well, this is Bandele El-Amin's the book. My books, you can check out all my books here on Amazon.com, and I got several books. Wake Up Africa, the new version, Moorish Treaties. A lot of the books a lot of what we're going to be talking about today, it comes from the if it pulls it up, the Indigenous Manual for Life, which is another book you can look at. It's not coming up here, but let's see. The Indigenous Manual for Life. So a lot of information going to be coming out of there. So with all that being said and done, let's get into what we're going to talk about today. Thanksgiving, or I call it misgivings, is for a lot of melanated people, it's conflict. It's conflicted with the history. A lot of us don't understand the history of it. They don't know the true history. We've been told the Pilgrims came over, had dinner with the Native Americans, and that's where you get Thanksgiving. But Thanksgiving comes from a time even just before that. So what we're going to look at is the origins of Thanksgiving from Europe, because it really comes out of Europe first. We're going to look at some of the symbolisms and things of that nature. One of the main ingredients when we talk about Thanksgiving is the turkey. Okay, and there's a rap video. A lot of us know Razcast. The nature of the threat. He goes into this particular aspect of talking about the turkeys are Turks and whatnot. But we're going to look at where the turkey really come from and see if it has any correlation to that. So it says, why is Thanksgiving bird called a turkey? Okay, let's look at it. It says, remember those fat turkeys we sketched as kids when Thanksgiving rolled around every November? So it goes into that, right? I'm trying to find the part. It says, drawing with primordial American scene was one of the few rituals of our native or national civic religion, just as American as apple pie, in which we could all participate without fear of offending one religious group or another. That's what Thanksgiving is brought to, how they present it to us. Never mind that this homage to a pastoral origin, Thanksgiving was largely a creation of stiff Victorians who saw American history through the windows or Courier and Ives. Never mind, let's see. Never mind this fictionalized version of a love feast between land grabbing Europeans and innocent Native Americans was about as accurate as caricatures of a happy go lucky banjo playing slave. Never mind that excuse me. Never mind that English colonists in scattered encampments from New England to Virginia were always close to starvation, or that they literally stole their food from Indians tribes from who time immemorial only grew enough food or snared the game needed to support a subsistence living. Okay. But I'm trying to find, okay, let's go down here. This is what I'm looking at. Now, it says, but if the turkey is an American is as American as motherhood and apple pie, why for God's sakes name is the name of this bird the same name as the vast and important country in the Middle East? Okay. Not just any country, mind you, Turkey, the proud nation we know today, was the seat of the Ottoman Empire, the largest and most powerful political realm the Western world has known since the decline and fall of Rome. Ottoman military might from the 13th to the 20th century covered as much territory and peoples as ever were controlled by Rome across wide expanses of Asia Minor, Europe, Russia, and Northern Africa. Okay? And importantly, the Ottoman Empire was an expression of Islamic religion, learning, and culture in a golden age of wealth, knowledge, and power among the followers of Muhammad. Stop there for a minute. All right. So they are making a correlation to Turkey, the country representing Ottoman Empire, which is an Islamic empire. Okay. It does seem to make a correlation because, you know, as Raz Cass said about the Moors, which were Muslims, Moors, who were part of this whole process, as he's talking about. So we kind of see some kind of Islamic tie to the Thanksgiving. Kind of interesting. So let's look further. Because there is this connection, with misgiving, Thanksgiving with America. How the American bird we know as turkey got the moniker turkey, not however you say that, which is Aztec or Mexican. Authentic early American names for American turkeys has much to do with the fact that Turkey was the center of the world at the time Christian Europeans began taking a few baby steps toward finding an alternative route to India. For when our hero Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue and planted a flag of Christian Spain on Native American land, he was not merely hoping to chart a shorter, cheaper route to Asia. He was looking for a trade route for Christian Europe that did not involve using a 15th century pipeline that crossed problematic, if not hostile Islamic lands. So, I want to kind of say the Silk Highway, was the easiest way to get into like Asia and to China, But you would imagine that a lot of that was being guarded by not just the Chinese, but also Islam, because you had to go kind of through Eastern Europe, kind of to get to Asia Minor. So yeah, I can see there have been a problem with the Europeans having to find another route. So I just wanted to give you a picture of that. We got the connection to the name Turkey, and the main meal of Thanksgiving is from a Islamic country. Okay, so we got that connection. Now I wanted to look at real quick. Let's see what we got. I wanted to look at the other part of this, and what this is when we're talking about Turkey, Ottoman Empire, and this type of things. We got to look at what was going on in Europe, and this is kind of like, so this is the history in Europe for Thanksgiving, and it really starts with the Treaty of Granada. And the Treaty of Granada is also, Rascast talks about the Treaty of Granada. So we had to look into that. The Treaty of Granada was signed and ratified in November 25th. Boom, November 25th. That's around the time that we always celebrate Thanksgiving. 1491, we're talking about, right? This is the time when the Moors were defeated, period. This is when the Moors was defeated in 1491. This is the treaty for that. It says that, which started in 1482, culminating a siege in the Battle of Granada, beginning in spring of 1491, okay? Now, it's also known as the capitulation of Granada. The treaty provided a short truce following the relinquishment in January 1492 of the sovereignty of the Moorish Emirate of Granada, founded 5 centuries earlier, to the Catholic monarchs of Spain. So this was a treaty between the Catholics and the Muslim Moors. So we're talking about these Moors. The Moors were Muslim at this time frame. They had taken on Islamic traditions. That was what it was. So we're talking about Islamic principles again. And their treaty with the Christian powers, the Catholics. It says in here, basically, this is what we'll probably get into, but this right here is the reason why they had a Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving for defeating the Moors and being able to kick them out. That was their Thanksgiving. And this treaty is the evidence that I'm using to show that there was a Thanksgiving for this. So the treaty articles, we're going to look at the treaty articles. The capitulation of 1492 contained 67 articles, among which were the following. Okay. That both great and small should be perfectly secure in their persons, families, and properties. That they should be allowed to continue in their dwellings, residence, whether in cities, suburbs, or any other part of the country. So in the beginning, I guess they were, allowing Muslim Moors to still live there. And they're saying that their mosques and their religious endowments pertaining to them should remain as they were in the times of Islam. So it sounded like, in the beginning, the Catholics was, being fair, if you will, to the Moors. And it says that no Christian should enter the house of a Muslim or insult him in any way. That no Christian or Jew holding public office by the appointment of the late Sultan should be allowed to exercise his functions or rule over them. That in all Muslim captives taken during the siege of Granada from whatever part of the country that they may have come, but especially the nobles and chiefs mentioned in the agreement shall be liberated. That's pretty heavy though. Like they defeated them, but they were giving a lot back to the Moors, as far as allowing them to be there. Let's go, keep on. That no Christian or Jew holding public. Oh, okay, let's see. That all Muslim captive. Oh, we went over those. Okay. That such Muslim captives as might have escaped from their Christian masters and taken refuge in Granada should not be surrendered, but that the Sultan should be bound to pay the price of such captives to them. Okay? So there's a lot of that going on in the beginning. That the Christians who embrace Islam should not be compelled to relinquish it. That no Muslim should be subject to have Christian soldiers bellied upon them or be transferred to provinces of this kingdom against his will. Pretty, fair so far. That no badge or distinctive mark be put upon them as was done with the Jews and the Mudehares. That no Muslims should be interrupted. You see how they did it? In the act of calling the people to prayer. And no Muslim molested either in performance of his daily devotions or in the observance of his fast or any other religious ceremony, but that if a Christian should be found laughing at them, should be punished for it. I mean, and it's deep because they talking about the Lord of Rome, the Pope, should be requested to give his assent to the above conditions and sign the treaty himself. So even the Pope was supposed to sign this treaty. This request by the Moorish side was not carried out. So that was the treaty. But we talk about so that was initially what they said, but what we'll see is quickly there's going to be a change. Within a couple years, you're going to start seeing problems. It says right here, the rebellion, okay? Initially, the Catholic conquerors implemented and reinforced general terms of the treaty. A joint municipal council was established in Granada, and the Muslims were allowed to elect their own representatives. Despite the pressure from the Spanish clergy, Ferdinand chose a laissez-faire policy toward the Muslims in hope that interaction with Catholics will make them understand the error of their faith and abandon it. Now that's kind of odd, but nonetheless, Hernando, a friar of converso origins, known for his moderation and piety, appointed as the Archbishop of Granada. He was known for his presence of preaching based on Catholic reasoning as opposed to punishment and lashes. When Ferdinand and Isabella visited the city in the summer of 1499, they were greeted by an enthusiastic crowd, including Muslims. Okay. So they were trying to convert, basically what they wanted to do was convert them into Catholicism. And that's what you see, like the beginning, really, the conquering and the treaty was really like the beginning of what they really wanted to do was assimilate in a nice way. But it says at the same time, Cardinal Francisco, the Archbishop of Toledo, arrived in Granada and began working alongside Talavera. It says Cisneros disliked his approach and began sending uncooperative Muslims, especially the noblemen, to prison, where they were treated harshly until they agreed to convert. So what you're seeing is they were trying to force the Muslims into conversion to being Christian. Muslims converted in a single, it says, let's see, hold on, let's go back. It says in December 1499, they told Pope Alexander that 3,000 Muslims converted in one single day, and that Cincero's own church council warned that these methods might be a breach of the treaty. And 16th century Alvar Gomez de Castro described the approach as methods that were not correct. So, they appear breaking the treaty, basically. So, in December 1499, amid the increasingly forced conversion and triggered by the incident involving an attempt by the authorities to reconvert a Muslim woman who had converted from Christianity, the population, which is the Muslim quarter of Granada, began an open and armed revolt. So this is why you start to see revolts, is because they were trying to convert them into Catholicism, and they was not abandoning their religious rights. Okay? So I'm showing this because the treaty, a lot of people don't even know about this treaty, but the fact that this treaty starts the Europeans' version of Thanksgiving. And let me see. Okay. So moving along, right? Because we're gonna look also at, we also got to keep looking at the Native American side, because like all of this, what we know is American history on Thanksgiving has really been like a myth. It's not this; these are not really historical pieces that we've seen. So now it says, like, we talk about Thanksgiving, and like for a lot of us melanated people, misgiving or Thanksgiving, we practice a fasting. A lot of indigenous, or a lot of melanated people also look at themselves as indigenous to these lands. So, because of that as well, just, whether you believe it or not, I know a lot of people, look to indigenous culture as they're here in America, you know what I mean? So looking at that, we want to say how Native people fast on Thanksgiving in remembrance of those who were murdered in the process of Western expansion of Europe in the Americas. In the Bay Area, indigenous people from across the continent have gathered for so many years to observe the day with a sunrise ceremony organized by the International Indian Treaty Council on Alcatraz Island. Okay. So, like, they say that, they get into like the time and whatnot, but they say, look at a typical dinner. It contains turkey, which we talked about, or tamales, sweet potatoes, corn, cranberry sauce, pumpkin. All these foods were found only in the Americas prior to 1492. Prior to 1492. Now, we just talked about the Treaty of Granada, 1491. I mean, these are all related. Okay, once the Europeans began to come over here, I mean, a lot of that food was brought back to the Europe. A lot of it was, brought into Europeans' lifestyle. They incorporated these things, but they're telling you though that the traditional Thanksgiving dinner that you know of is primarily indigenous American, or indigenous to the culture of Americas. Okay. So, I just wanted you to look at that real quick. The last thing is really I wanted to look at is like looking at this history of misgivings. I really found out that, I mean, like, it really didn't happened, anything like what we've been told. Now, I thought this was really an interesting article to look at. You can see where it comes from. It said what really happened at the first Thanksgiving. Okay, by Dora. This is the typical picture that we normally, associate with. We look at the Native Americans, all being around and, being happy, and, Europeans and the natives could all get along for this dinner, being thankful. But according to this article, it says in the fall of 1621, the Pilgrims celebrated their first successful harvest by firing guns and cannons at Plymouth, Massachusetts. Okay? The noise alarmed ancestors of the contemporary Wampanoag Nation, who went to investigate. It says this is how Native people came to be present at the first Thanksgivings, says Ramona Peters, historic preservation officer at the Mashpee Wampanoag tribe, which suggests that paintings depicting Native Americans sitting down for a bountiful and harmonious meal with colonial families is basically a lie. Okay. It says the Wampanoag people, men were not really sure what they were being told was actually true. So they stayed around for a few days. They camped outside, says Peters. So there was a lot of tension as well. All these men, warriors, were next door in the woods all night and in the dark close by. So, hey, close the door. Close the door. It says while while Wampanoag might have shared food with the Pilgrims during this strange fact-finding mission, they also hunted for food. It says that right here, it says what actually was eaten at the first Thanksgiving is far different from the turkey, mashed potatoes, and stuffing that grace many holiday tables today, according to experts at Plymouth Plantation, a living history museum in Plymouth, Massachusetts. Okay, so the whole thing, like the food wasn't even what they said it was. None of that. It says we know turkey was plentiful in Plymouth Colony, but we don't know for certain that it was served at a meal. The likelihood is very strong, though. Mussels, lobster, and eel were available as well and enjoyed by both English and Wampanoag. Plymouth Plantation attempts to replicate original Plymouth colony settlement established by the English colonists in the 17th century and makes educated guesses about what else might have been on the first Thanksgiving table. So they talk about, the different foods that would have been on there that would have been indigenous to America. Pumpkins and all that. It says, and then it goes into saying, it says, although Americans now celebrate Thanksgiving on the fourth Thursday of November, historians can't pinpoint the exact date of the very first Thanksgiving. We know it took place over 3 days, sometime between mid-September and early November. So, really, the time that they've set apart for it today doesn't even really coincide with the American historical element, because they're saying roughly, but it says September and early November. So if it's early November, usually Thanksgiving is toward the very end of November. So it's not even within the time frame that they historically believe it to be. But we go back to the video earlier, and we know that the treaty for the Moors was done in November 25th. So it seems that Thanksgiving has a lot more to do with what happened in Europe with the Muslims and with the Moors than it actually does with the Native Americans. But it does seem like they have tried to put the two together. So, um, really, that's it on that right there. I just wanted to show some of the different aspects of what's going on, and really, for melanated people, Miss Thanksgivings is not necessarily a thankful time historically, but a lot of us will use it to spend time resting, or a lot. It's traditionally spent with family, but let's look back and reflect this year, and for many years, for now on, let's try to look at the historical elements of Thanksgiving in its relation to us as melanated people, and really not being the most pleasant or positive experience. And actually, it seems to be the beginning of what we will see as European domination over the planet. So it's not necessarily a beneficial holiday for melanated people. But for the time, we just use our time wisely, whether we are fasting or with family. Let's keep our ancestors in mind and keep them in our hearts. So that's really it, my people. Check out our other videos. Like I said, give this a thumbs up, subscribe, and check me on the next video. Till then, tuta nana, salama, peace.